So let's start off with a couple of announcements. um, to submit your work for Critique Hour, if you see something that you want to share, if you have 14-day challenges, if you have a piece that you're having issues with, submit it on to the Critique Hour. That's what this community is primarily. It is the Critique Hour community. And then from this wall on Reddit, so to go to the Reddit, you just go to istebrak.com and click on the Reddit icon here. To go to the wall, you just have to join as a Reddit member. It's not too hard posting pieces. It's definitely a bit of a learning curve, but I think it's really simple to just post an image. And I think it's either a link or an image, and just post the image so that we see the image on the wall and take a look at it easier. When you post a link, it is harder to get critiques because it's only a link, and images that are submitted with a preview have a higher chance of getting critiqued, not just by myself but by others on the community. Most posts get commented. Most 14-day challenges get a critique. If you're not getting critiques on your 14-day challenge, it's because you're not giving them. People, if they recognize you, they will give you back a critique. And that's how you build, that's what a community is. It's based on communication. So make sure that you guys are communicating with each other so that you can get your critiques. To give, you gotta give a little. Portrait Studio is still on sale. I'll be using it a little bit today, maybe, if the content applies. And it will be on sale indefinitely until this whole COVID crisis goes down, just because a lot of people might um, want to get started on, because of all the downtime and the work from home and the lockdowns and the quarantines. People might want to just start studying, so I'm just going to leave it on sale. It would be the evil thing to do to raise it back up during the COVID crisis because everyone's having financial issues and everyone's at home studying. So I thought I'll just extend the sale even more. The sale has never run for months and months, it's only ever run for 2 weeks at a time. One time I extended it for Christmas last year, and this is just all unprecedented because 2020 has been such a horrid year, and it's just one thing after another. But I hope that you guys, whoever bought it, is benefiting from it. A lot of people have asked for Control Z for the figure, posing the figures and the mannequins. Yes, it is definitely in the works. There have just been an unbelievable amount of delays for the update. The update is almost finished, but remember that it is a one-man team. Abu is the only person working on it, apart from me standing over his head yelling at him. But I'm so sorry. I sound really bad today. I'm really weak of voice, and I'm very short of breath. So I'm sorry about that. If you like what you see in today's class, if you like Critique Hour, if you want to support my channel, I don't really work with any marketing. I don't work with YouTube in any way. I think I make like $100 a year off YouTube monetization, which is really crazy. And I have since not had any payment from AdSense for about 6 months, so I think I make less than 100 a year now since they started with all these rules. Because my videos are so long, that I just don't make any money off YouTube. So if you want to support this channel, you can if you join as a patron for $1, and that's why I call them dollar watchers. It's just the smallest untraceable amount of money a day, and it adds up. If everybody on the Reddit joined as a patron, I really would have no worries ever again, and would probably never need to promote Patreon at the start of every class. I was supposed to continue the campaign to get everyone on board for $1 a month, but I got sick and we had to move, and I just never I couldn't continue it because Critique Hour had to come to a stop. But if you want to join as a watcher, you can. Other tiers come with different benefits as well. Okay, I'm so sorry about how I sound. I cannot apologize enough for how terrible I sound right now. Let's get started on today's class. Um, I will be using Portrait Studio for a couple of these critiques today. A quick little announcement for my apprentice patrons. Rewards will come out very soon. I have just been unbelievably sick, and the prognosis for the virus is 5 to 6 weeks. And I'm not saying that the rewards will be delayed 5 to 6 weeks, but it has been extremely difficult to get my health in order just to last through private sessions and critique hour. And it is the hardest thing, as you can hear me struggling, and for the past couple critique hours, it has been very, very difficult to run a critique hour and then do the private critiques and do the rewards and send them out. So I am very, very sorry for the delays in the rewards. So I'm gonna run Portrait Studio now. I hardly recognize myself in class today, and I probably feel the same way. I don't sound like myself, and again, I'm so sorry. um, and as administrator, okay, another instance is already running, it tells me. I'm sure it'll start. Alright. So for this piece here, we have a couple of issues, and remember, if you take notes, you get free rewards. You get a brush set, and for really, really, really good note takers that have shown a consistent um, quality in their notes, um, might win a critique hour session with me. And I've done this before, and it's really, really good to be vigilant with your note taking. It shows that you're a student that is prepared to step forward in the classes to define themselves by their learning habits and their discipline. And I like to reward that whenever I can. So if you guys want to expose yourself and get out there and show off some of your note taking and possibly win a private session with me, take good notes. And by notes, I mean look at the notes that have won in the past, and they come with a little comment on them from me saying, congratulations, you've won a brush set. You can win a brush set and settle for that, or you can just aim for the stars. And if every single critique hour my mods have noticed that you upload really, really great notes, you might win a private session with me. It's just a single session portfolio review. We go over everything that you are working with, suffering from, and we just iron through all of the fundamentals, and I give you a quick, not a quick, a thorough lesson plan for the rest of the month on your own. So it's like being self-taught with a little bit of a push from me. So this piece here is suffering from a lot. You're trying to represent a character that is bulky, that is built, that is scary, that is a demon. You're also trying to give him an appeal, a sexiness to him. One of the issues when we zoom out is his head is very big, and he's reading as like a toddler or a really, really small, probably like 5 foot bodybuilder man. So the shorter you are, the bigger your head looks in comparison to your body. So his head looks huge. You also have some lighting issues. So remember a couple sessions ago, I separated the critique hour in two ways. I put anatomy on one side. I'm sorry if you can't read that. It's Dr. Istebrak, Dr. Brack handwriting. And lighting on another. And then it could be lighting on another and staging and characterization. Okay, but lighting is always the outside element when it comes to critiquing. For me, as a teacher going in into a painting that's already completed, for me, critiquing, lighting is always separate. And as the student, the way you ingest this information should also be separate, because lighting is something that you can cross off your list, and it does not require extensive knowledge exposure the way you require that for anatomy. So anatomy requires consistent practice and instinctive awareness of when something, like for instance the head looks big to me, because instinctively, because of how much anatomy I have done, how I have observed human figure, I understand instinctively the head looks big. So this is a deeper knowledge. This is a deep knowledge. All right, sometimes it's an unconscious knowledge. Lighting, you have no excuse for having bad lighting because it does not have to be an instinctive knowledge. Lighting is very basic. I know it affects everything, but in comparison to anatomy, characterization, all these things that require a more familiarity over time to become an unconscious, instinctive awareness. Lighting is very much physics. It's basic fundamentals. It's rules. So the answer to your question is staring you right in the face. We have light behind a character, and it is a light source that is in the painting. These are rules. When you hear them in class, you write them down and you memorize them, and it does not really take 17 tries to know what a silhouette is. Do you know what I mean now? Do you want to know, like, do you understand why I'm making this difference, this distinction between lighting and everything else? Because it's not something that should take 100 tries the way anatomy takes 100 tries. It's something that once you see, I mean, it's right there. A silhouette is a silhouette. So this is a silhouette, and a silhouette means that the object in front of a light becomes shadowed because we're technically on the shadow side. So let's go to Google, Sister Google, and just take a look at what a silhouette means. All right, so a silhouette is when the light. Look at this fucking naked cowboy. Who the fuck thought this was hot? So a silhouette is when a character is in front of the light. So this funny little giraffe. Okay? People like to do it on the sunset. I don't know why. It can be at any time of day as long as you're in front of the light source. Silhouette photo. Foo. Okay. Alright, so this is a silhouette. Alright, let's look at rim light. Rim light is very similar to a silhouette, but it's just angled in such a way where we're seeing some of the light seep into the outlines of the character. Alright? And then they darken everything else behind the character. Maybe it's a black fabric, maybe it's some kind of darker studio with a very specific. It seems like a very large light, right? But a dark studio should be able to illuminate everything. But the camera is tilted, there's no bounce light anywhere, no reflectors of any kind, just so that the rim light is highlighted. But it is technically a silhouette because we're standing in front of the light, somehow obstructing it, allowing only half of the other side of the face that we're not seeing is all lit up. You guys know that, right? That half that we don't see, this is half our face, we see one half, or one half is pointed at the camera, the other half is fully lit. That's why I'm saying we're on the dark side of the character in front of the light, obstructing the light in some way or another. So, what does that mean for the corrections? The corrections come in two ways. The corrections come in the lighting and in the anatomy. So, I'm going to try to do anatomy first because I like when the impact of the lighting happens after, towards the end. The anatomy, in this case, it needs to represent the body type and the character's role in the story. If he's supposed to be some kind of heavy-duty dude, why is he so delicately built that his whole character is a shorter stature? I mean, he wouldn't scare me. And I'm not here making fun of short people. I'm just saying, like, it does not make sense to the character that you're building. This, like, let's say it was a league champion. Is it a league champion? I don't know. It does not make sense that they're a warrior or a champion if they are of a smaller stature, unless they are some kind of elf or yordle or whatever the hell. I hate that I'm a fan of League. It's not. I hate that I like League lore, but after a point, they just stopped trying. I think after Kindred, they just stopped trying. So the shape of the moon got cut off for some reason. You didn't really complete the shape of the moon from before. Nothing against League, I just don't like what it's become. But I'm a snob anyway. Alright, so I shrunk the size of the head and I want to show you guys the difference that made. See how he looked like a girl before but with a male body for some reason? After, a lot stronger, takes up a lot less space on the canvas. And then I'm not sure if you're trying to do this whole trendy, not he she type of setup, but you gave him a skirt and then you showed us his thighs, and then the thighs are tucked together, very very feminine. You basically gave him a bikini. Um, when it comes to male characters, because they've got balls, it's not very male-esque and not very male warrior to put your legs together like that. Ask any dude, is it comfortable to sit like that with your thighs touching? I mean, for a girl, easy peasy. I can do that. I'm sitting like that right now. But that's because I don't have any junk down there, right? Guys have junk. I mean, look at his codpiece. So, that just makes no sense at all to give him that bikini line and then go out of your way to build this really, really strong masculine body. It does not work. And if you are painting an androgynous character, you did it in all the wrong ways. Androgyny, if you successfully painted androgyny, starts with one particular sex as the base, as the starting sex. So it's a male who looks like a female or a female who looks like a male. But you have to start off with the basic readable initial gender and then dress the other gender on top. It could be a masculine body with an effeminate face. It could be an effeminate body, like a female with a masculine face and a masculine haircut. That's how you get androgynous. It's not always with boobs. It's not always mixing sexual organs. It's not always, and not in the fun way. I'm joking. It's not about having boobs and like being a hermaphrodite. It's not about that. That's bad design. All right. So bringing his legs apart has significantly improved his gesture. He feels like he's in the battlefield. He feels like he's fighting. I really don't know why he had this delicate little flower-esque, this feminine virgin-esque. I hate putting esque at the end of a word, but it's just funny. It's why is he doing that? If he's walking forward, he's why is he walking? He has wings. He's flying. He's in the sky. Why is he taking a step forward? He's just showing off his garter. What is that? What it's called? He's just showing off his thighs. He just feels like he just feels sexy. So right now he feels a little bit more strong, a little bit more scary, a little bit more immense because we've shrunken the size of his head. Any other student, if I told them the head is too small, they'd enlarge the body, they'd make the pecs bubble out and look ridiculous, and then no, shrink the head, give the head a chance, shrink it, and see what happens. All right, so let us move on to the lighting. So that was anatomy. It's a little bit of characterization because the thighs being tucked together like that just did not match the narrative that you were after. And I think we've all matured past that excessive sexual identity crisis thing that we had in the art community where everyone was drawing an androgynous character, not because they wanted to, but because they didn't have the skill to pull off any particular gender, and they just kind of rode the bandwagon. And yeah, it was very much a struggle as a teacher dealing with that movement because it manifested in the art community more than anywhere else, and it was just a nightmare because I was constantly the students constantly fought back saying, oh yeah, I meant for that, I meant for that. No, you don't mean for anything. You're a beginner. You respectfully stop trying to do stuff like that until you know better, until you know how to tastefully pull off androgyny and not use it as an excuse so you don't do studies. So I'm throwing in some of this moonlight on the rest of the painting, just underneath. And what that's going to do is help us pull off the feeling of a really, really bright moon. So you see what happened. And again, I'm putting everything in a separate layer so that um, we have a before and after that's instant. So you see that? It's really helped with the silhouette to have a little bit more brightness around the character. Okay. And then now I'm going to do the opposite of that. Now that I still have my lasso, I'm going to do the opposite of that and try to, oopsie, try to get the character out of that kind of overly exposed lighting setup so that I could darken them accordingly, because they are in a silhouette, and that was the requirement, as we discovered with our references. The object itself has to be a little bit more dark for us to have a believable silhouette. Okay, oops, wrong key. Okay, so that means that we have a new layer, and we're going to choose a common value color. We're going to choose like a, like an equal darken value, something that we can use as on the darken layer that will help this read a little bit better. Select inverse. Yep, I didn't select the inverse. Oh, come on. Select inverse. Why isn't it darkening him? Motherfucker. Did I not do this right? What is going on? Yeah, it's probably a bad lasso. So I am doing it right. There we go. Alright, so I don't know why that didn't work. So now I'm going to darken him a little bit. And just take a look at what just happened. Okay? Look at that. The wings are going to get darkened because though, yes, we are in a silhouette and there will be that subsurface scattering along the edges of the wings, it's still nighttime and there isn't enough diffusion going around. Okay, so we've established a really strong light source on the outside in the light environment. The light environment is being lit by a supermoon, so yeah, we're going to have a little bit more glow behind him, just so that we can make sense of this in this atmosphere in this time of night. And then we have a character in front, and we're not going to completely darken the character because it still has to be an illustration, but we're going to darken enough that we've respected the moon with a common darken value. I only used one color. Noobs will go and try to darken this. Raise your hand if you do this. You're going to choose a separate darken value for this. Istebrak told me I have to darken everything, so I'm going to choose a separate darken value for this part of the gem. This part of the pectorals will be darkened with a different value. The face will be darkened with something else because it's the face. Obviously, I have to treat it differently. The hair will have its own darken value, and this will be darkened differently, and that'll be that. Istebrak told me to darken it, right? No, I chose one color that I picked out of this area right here. And that's all I did, and that was the only way that I darkened this. And that's why it looks like a good darken. Because I just choose one universal color. And that's how you make a character look like they're part of the same environment. That the wings are part of the same scene. The arms are part of the same scene. The hair and the horns and everything is part of the same scene. And you have a professional looking Magic the Gathering card. And just a couple of changes and this looks like a colossal difference. Like a 5-year difference. Same artist 5 years later. But it was like how many minutes have I been streaming for? It's like less than a 15 minutes of corrections. How do you justify that kind of difference in just 15 minutes? And how are you going to take the notes that you need to take in order to make sure you don't make this mistake again? Because it's just fundamental rules. It's not a deep instinctive knowledge that takes years to develop or months. It's literally something you can cross off your list. It's a line of code that you can run in your brain that'll address this. Okay? You have to darken with a universal value. The same way we chose the value of the light to light up the universal with a universal value, the sky behind him. All right? So let's select the inverse, and with a new layer, I'm going to expand the light behind his head because that's just a little bit of extra drama that we need. And I'm going to move. No, I want a little less. Just a bit more glow behind him, just like that. And then, just so I don't lose my lasso, I'm going to put this in a separate layer, and then select inverse, new layer, and I'm going to bring in with a soft brush some of that bloom that happens in a silhouette, which is the light kind of bleeding in. Okay? And you can make it a smaller radius. It can be just the smallest little blooms of light here and there. Okay, and then I'm just going to flatten the whole image, and I've preserved my lasso, so don't worry if you're worried. And okay, and then we have just a bit of corrections to do. I just gotta get the silhouette, and you see how I gave him a big old package. I endowed him, and that's just gonna help complete the read. I kind of messed up lassos everywhere. And I'm gonna just clean those up. And then open up Portrait Studio so we can talk about how you lit up the chest, because that is a bit problematic. Okay, before I do that, I'm going to zoom out and see what I can do about the wings, just so that it makes sense, just so it's enough that it makes sense. And I feel like the wings are behind him, so I'm going to kind of throw the wings behind in a very tricky little way by bringing in some of the background color and throwing it over the wings, and that's going to make the wings feel like they're behind. It's atmospheric perspective, but it's applied very, very strategically to make the wings feel like they're behind the character. It's just enough that the arm feels like it's in front of. Right, and then select inverse, and I'm going to just try to darken using shadows the arm just a touch, just so the arm feels like it's in front. Okay. Oops. And then go back here. I've got my old lasso, and I'm going to darken the wings where they are closer to the character. Which lasso do I have on? Right. So wherever they are closer to the character, that's where I would darken the wings, just because there is no distance at that point. Tiny little atmospheric change, but it does a world of difference. The point here where the gems kind of emerge out of his shadow should get a bit more of that translucency. I'm going to use Dodge tool to pull that off. And that's going to look great because it's going to make it feel like the light really is coming through. And when we are doing subsurface scattering, we grab the color of the air, not just the Dodge color, and we throw that into the color of the light, and I call it the color of the air just because I'm talking about the atmospheric color. Because it's the color that is carried into the object during during the subsurface scattering. And subsurface scattering really only happens where the shadows are. So I choose the shadow, I outline the shadow, and then I cut off the shape of the shoulder. So it's saturate and illuminate. So Dodge tool. Right? And then the color of the light source on that as well factored in. And then I'm going to select all of this and go, before I started doing all of this, I'm going to go back and paste it on top, because what I want to do is, because the shadow is so soft, that's how the shadow should be cut off. Here and there. I kinda should saturate, using sponge tool, these gems here. Is this like a dark Taric or something from League of Legends? I could be wrong. You could do the same thing with this subsurface scattering around the horns. Okay. Beautiful job on the horns though. It's just going to be a little trickier for you to pull that off because you don't want to throw off the silhouette at the same time. So I darken that. Then I'm just going to darken the way the hair wraps around the head. Bringing in Dodge tool for where the major shine of the hair happens, because the hair is a little bit different from the rest of the body. And now let's open up Portrait Studio, because we're having a bit of trouble with the male chest anatomy, and that's what the models are really good for, is that they are figures, male. They're good for helping us figure out what the chest does in that particular type of lighting. And before I do that, I have to just change the background color to be as dark as the silhouette we have. And then I'm going to turn off I'm going to turn on a point light. And I'm going to shift it forward, because this is that indirect lighting we're using on him. And I'm going to turn off the directional light. So now we have light coming in from one particular spot. And then let's try to, well, I don't really have to pose him, but we can kind of pose the head a little bit. And then if I remember correctly, this hand is doing that. And if you do have trouble trying to figure out what the heck to do with the hands and how to enlarge them, like how to shape them, the amount of field of view that you need, you know, we always have that option here. Oh. Alright. Stupid girl. Alright. And then we're shrinking this. And I'm going to shrink the size of his head, just because he's a demon in this case. So he's supposed to have these really, really big upper body. Or you can just, I don't want to shrink it too much, or you can just enlarge the size of the torso, just to give him that cartoony league athletic body type, if you guys have seen it. So his body's kind of, his torso's kind of tilted that way, with his head tilted that way, and this tilted that way. So we do have a primary light source which creates a silhouette, which could be another point light applied behind. So let me just turn off the field of view and zoom out. This is point light number 2. Oh shit. I think this is my main light. I don't know. And this one will have extremely high strength. The range will be higher and it will be volumetric. And we tilt it back this way. And we limit the strength and range of this one. And the density. And then to create a stronger silhouette, you can move the character forward even more and have a stronger silhouette. And then we have the light that is allowing everything to be seen, which is the light that we're barely limiting. The volumetric, the density doesn't have to be that high. But this is technically why we're seeing the character, the secondary camera light. So what I want to do is really, really quickly kind of just increase the metallic surface, just so I can show you one really, really important thing. Let me turn off volumetric. And that is, with this secondary light, what's the path of the light on his muscles and pectorals? Because I opened this up for the anatomy. And I'm just going to turn off the joints. So this should technically be where the light is traveling on his pecs. And where you have it is so dull. And I increased the metallic texture on purpose, just because I want to show you the exact path. Right? So it's the same, it's just that we've darkened the character so the metallic goes up. Alright, so this path, this triangular shape here, the path on the muscles, the light on the face, should be what we're doing over here. Alright, so the way you have it is that you have this really, really flat shape, and this is just one big example of the benefits of a form study in your education. Is that you're actually not even sculpting. Everything is flat. Things that are full of volume are actually flat. And every single one of these little abs has no core shadow in response to that second point light that we had. There's no core shadows anywhere. And that's something you learn when doing form studies. And that was last week's class. It was important it showed you how important form studies are for your everything, for your portfolio, for pushing you a little bit further with your skill, for knowing how to read a reference. And this is a good example. So you can always take a screenshot and open it up it'll just save to your desktop, but I'm just going to pop in and out of Portrait Studio here. I'm going to try to respond to. Remember that trick with the radial shading I showed you? I'm just going to choose the background color. That shows you kind of how to build up without too much blending. You just build up your value so you don't have to blend. The shoulder has a big highlighter on it. Yep. And then a bit of a highlighter here. And if we exited the light setup, if we exited it, the silhouette light environment setup, we can always redarken, because we're still technically, the radial shades are still present in their ratios. I'm just jumping back and forth to my reference here. What happens on the other pec? So it has a little bit of light here. And pecs have like a space between them. They don't just like meet together on like a cushion seam or something like that, like a couch. Like there's a little bit of a space between them. As you can see, this little space here that we applied on the mannequins just so it stays accurate. And there's a shadow to this pec, a pretty big one. And then right after that shadow, we have the space of the two pecks in front of beside each other. And then we've got a little bit of a shadow for the next one. And then we've got the highlighter. And I forget, do lead characters even have nipples? Like I don't remember. Do they show nipples in that game? Or I mean they show all kinds of titties and cleavage, so I don't know why they wouldn't. Yeah, I'm in a different layer. I'll just try to. The pectoral muscle tucks into the armpit and not up to the shoulders. Okay, so from a distance, look at what we're doing. We're building this kind of really volumetric shape before, after this voluminous, shape. All right, by the way we're focusing all the shadows on one side, all the shadows on one side, and all the highlights towards the top. And if we redarken for the sake of the silhouette, it makes a little bit of sense. And one thing you can add in this case is, so if it kind of got darker, but that's okay, you can relighten some of this stuff. And if you want to, depending on the texture of the objects receiving the light, we can have a rim light as well on some of these. So if there is and this, you guys overdo this shit all the time. I mean, you guys basically just outline your characters. But if there is enough and there is a chance and it's appropriate for the object receiving the light, we can throw in some of this, depending on the anatomy. Okay, and it can be the fur of his outfit here. Of course, I would not let highlighters get too highlighty towards the edge of the canvas because we're trying to focus all the contrast back up here. Some of his hair will definitely get that subsurface scattering rim light. And then we have, basically this is a how to do a league splash critique hour. It's all about the light environment. And then I'm going to throw some up here. It's going to camouflage and make his head feel a little smaller, but I'm going to throw it in anyway just in case we need that read. Remember, the thinner this line, this point light, this rim light, the thinner it is, the more tasteful. Don't do the whole thick rim light business. It looks cheesy and cheap. The thinner it is, the less you seem as an artist that you're depending on it to create volume. And like every league splash, you have this abundance of time invested into the portrait, and you have all kinds of issues in the portrait, my friend. You've got line dependence, you've got bad core shadows, you don't really have a nose that makes much sense. You've got no blending really, you've kind of just cell shaded in a great deal of stuff. I mean, it wouldn't really kill you to just blend some of these values so that it looks like a warm creature or an organic creature. I know, I mean, he's not a robot, so he shouldn't have plates on his face. And then you have this chance to apply a little bit more mystery to his face and a little bit more volume by throwing some of his face into some shadow. And I illuminated the eyes, of course. But let me show you one last little thing. Oops. Okay. Select inverse. Let me show you the power of this. So remember that little area where I chose that darken value? Well, I'm going to throw that everywhere again, just to darken it one more time. And I'm only going to delete at the eyes. So the eyes, let's start there. I'm going to delete at the subsurface scattering and the horns, some of the rim light and some more subsurface scattering. The hands, which do escape the cast shadow, should get a bit more light on them. And a little bit of the hair shine, pectoral shine, and cheek shine. Alright, so we threw him into more shadow, and automatically that just created this really, really, really tasteful silhouette that looks so intense. And then, as a final little nail in the coffin, I'm going to bring in more light in the background. And this is all just, we're like, yo, fuck this dude. This is all about the light. The light is the only thing that makes any sense in a scene. The only thing that matters in a scene with an environment in it. And a scene that has a character but also has an environment. Let's put the environment first and see what happens for the character. Look at the story that this character now has around it. 2 extra layers I added to this paint over today. I added a darker character and a lighter background, just to reinforce that silhouette. This beautiful silhouette. This silhouette that started the whole critique hour. Just to push it one stage further. And you have that. You have the option of doing that. You have the drama of the real environment. And then you have the, the one that's a little bit more for the pinup, for the character being visible. You can also just have a brighter background and have the character stay visible, which is common in those league splashes because they try to put detail before anything else. But this little bit, this little extra bit, this little everything is dark but the eyes, that's illustration. That's when you're a professional. That's when you put the light ahead of the character, ahead of anything else. Nothing is more important than the light. All right, so does anybody have any questions at all? Which one would you guys vote for? Would you vote for the one where it is all about the light, or the one that kind of promotes the character a little bit more? All right, so I have to do a before and after with the history. So we have before, too dark a background, the character's light, what's lighting up the character, and why is the moon behind him then? Why did you put the light source of the entire environment? The world came first, the sky comes first. The sky was always there, and then this dude was born 4,000 years ago. Nothing is more important than entertaining the laws of physics in the environment. The rules that the moon is the brightest object in the sky, no matter how, well, not really, but it's still technically a bigger, brighter object. The sun will always be the brightest object in the sky in your painting. And after, a little bit more shadow. And then obviously you have the option of having a brighter background. So before, after. Alright. And then there's the color factor. I like the color of the background. It really feels like it's more, it's just more airy, It feels airy. It feels like an airy thing. I'm going to just, looking at my navigator every couple clicks, I'm just clicking in some more light into the eyes. Because I opted for a brighter background but a less dark body. But I'm trying to recreate the dark body by brightening the eyes, so by comparison we end up with a brighter body, a darker body. I should have just kept some of it percentage wise, but it's too late now. So before, after. Okay. So way more drama, way more just intensity in the scene. I think it really feels like he just swooped in and did his spell. What would you do to make the character pop out in a painting? What kind of environment would work better for that? The kind of light environment. Well, this silhouette definitely makes the character pop out. Then there's a light that would point at the character, and the background is dark, so that the character is the only thing illuminated. Everything is a step down. The way you make a character pop out isn't with a type of lighting, it's with specific rules. The character gets more contrast, the character gets more saturation, the character gets more detail, the character gets sharper edges. Those are the ways to detail, and those are the ways you make a character pop out. So if you wanted to make him feel more like a focal point, we've already given him contrast because his head is literally against the light, but if you want to saturate more, that's one way to make him pop out. See how now the focal point is centered around, I'm just adding random saturation wherever it comes up, is centered around the focal point. So we have before, after, and that's just with saturation. If you feel like the before and after is too dull and we lost some stuff, you can always reignite it with some saturation. You still have your silhouette. Your silhouette is still intact. I think saturation is kind of girly for him. I might just throw the saturation just on his eyes and his helmet, his horns, just to create that feeling. There's another cool trick. You can see that purple that's emerging. I'm going to grab that purple and using a soft brush, create like a rim around the character with color layer, if it works. Just as if there's like a camera distortion, like a halo of light around the character. Okay, and we still need to grab this light and throw it on the fingers. I recommend, and you can pose the hands in Portrait Studio, I recommend a different pose for the hands because it's looking kind of beginner in comparison to the rest of the painting. I really recommend you kind of change that up a little bit. Yeah, well, the horns should be translucent ideally because it's a subsurface scattering that we've added. Alright, any questions at all? How do you keep track of the values, especially the subtle changes? Navigator. Yeah, it was a little bit monochrome, but we were talking about a before and after that really needed to be the separation. See how a head between the light source and the sky and the character, so that's why we ended up with a monochromatic look. Do you see how big the head was? I don't know if the creator is here, the artist, but you see how massive that head was, bro? Looked like a bobblehead, kind of put on your dashboard. Okay. So Portrait Studio helped us locate where the light is on the anatomy. To purchase it, go to istebrak.com. If you don't know where to get Portrait Studio, you just have to go to istebrak.com. On the store, it is on sale at the moment. It will stay on sale for a good while. So you can just go to the store here to grab your copy. So those were the changes that we did there in the anatomy. But remember, what were the two big, I drew a little graph here. What were the two distinctions between the two kinds of changes we did? What were the two changes? What were the two big changes? He looks much more menacing in the after. That would tell us how long the arms are, right? Kawar asks, how can I develop a good idea of how big the hands need to be in relation to the body? I mean, that would just tell us how long the arms are. You can get away with big hands. Big hands don't really change the way we read the rest of the body, because a person can have big hands, and cartooning, especially in this hybrid realism of league splashes, You don't have to worry about the hands being big because sometimes it's part of the characterization. We can make his hands even bigger. He'll just look cooler. It's really the head that you need to watch out for. Head, chest, legs. For male characters, because the male body is large at the top, small at the bottom, um, you can afford really, really thin legs and he would still look good. Lighting is one category, anatomy is in a separate one. Excellent. And if you were to answer, remember, whoever takes good notes gets free brushes from my store. So what was the main lighting scenario that we found in this painting? Does anybody remember? So I am feeling a little bit sick. I always think I'm going to get to this critique, but I never do. This one is great. Really, really similar scenario. I might cover this one next class on Thursday. So if you pop in on Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, you will catch next class as critique hour. So remember to pop in. You're all at home quarantined, so y'all have no excuse not to pop in. um, but exactly the silhouette, excellent. The silhouette and the light environment, the second light source, excellent. Um, Silhouette dark, excellent. And so that's pushed the feel like, okay, this character is so cool. This painting is good because the world is real around him. The light will make a shadow in front of him. That's what makes him feel realistic. It's not just in him having good anatomy. You could have great anatomy. You could have had all of this, but a really, really bad light environment. And that would not, the anatomy would not have saved you. The light environment does a lot for the character. And then, of course, there was the gesture. The gesture with that whole thigh in front of, that's a girl's gesture in a league splash. That's what girls do in a league splash. Just look out for it the next time you load up a league game, hopefully after you did enough time studying. Um, you just find this in, like, well, I think Morgana's splash has this. I know for sure Zyra's splash has this. This exact gesture with their hands reaching forward and their thighs and that walk. But all of the male characters across anime and league splashes have that spread leg. I need my balls to breathe. I know I'm a creature of darkness, and my mother is darkness herself, but I still need breathing room for my balls. All right. So thank you everyone for joining in today's class. I really appreciate it. To submit your work for Critique Hour, go to istebrak.com and click on the Reddit icon. That's where you can post your stuff for critique. Remember to read the rules. Remember to make sure that you are not submitting anime, like straight up anime. I don't accept that here. If you're trying to do a hybrid, that's cool. We will work with you. My mods don't tolerate rule breakers, and but if you feel like you've been wrongfully punished, just send me a quick message and I'll have a look at what happened. Please, no photo bashing. Absolutely no photo bashing. If you obviously photo bashed and said you didn't, you obviously did, and I'll know. In all my years of experience, I know when someone used a photo very, very closely. Um, and yeah, so none of that is acceptable, especially lying about it. If you want to support me on Patreon, if you like today's class and you want to join as a $1 patron, it's just $1 a month. But the reason why I'm promoting it is so that, if everybody joined as $1 a month, this channel would be very, very, very funded and very, very supported. And there would be no reason for me to take massive breaks to try to catch up with my work if I am sure that the work is backed up anyways. And that's just one thing that being a patron does, is that you financially directly support the artist and their channel and their community and what they do. Um, and that's really all that I have as announcements. I don't really have anything else. You can always join as a patron and get a different for a different tier. So you can join as a watcher for $1, or you can join as an apprentice. You can join as a pupil to get minimal kind of work. Um, Rewards sent back to you, so PSDs and all of my like personal work PSDs, so you can see how I work. And If you want to get video time lapse of that PSD, you can join as an initiate, or to get all of that, as well as access to Discord, assignments, private critique hours, time lapse videos, brushes, everything that I can possibly give you, I give you as an apprentice. Currently, there is a small delay in the rewards for April, but they will be out very, very soon. I just have coronavirus, and I've had it for a while now, and I've been very, very sick. And it's, as you can see from the start of today's class, it was very, very difficult to get this rolling and going. But I try to make it whenever I can, whenever I have energy to spare in the day. Um, and that's it. Thank you everyone for coming today. I love you guys very much. I will see you guys on Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And I do want to ask you guys to follow me on Instagram because I'm almost at 10K followers and I really want to make it. So please follow me on Instagram. That's me. Um, so I can make it to 10K. Okay. I'll let you guys go. Bye everyone. I'll see you guys on Thursday. Bye.